Make sure to leave a like, turn on notifications, and subscribe for more history. The Mongol Empire, one of the most ruthless societies to ever exist in human history. Being the world's second largest empire to exist behind Great Britain, the Mongols carved out most of Asia and parts of Europe through plunder, war, rape, torture, and more. Some topics may be distressing for some viewers. We heavily advise viewer discretion. This is the brutality of the Mongol Empire. The year is 1206. A portion of the Asian continent was made up of nomadic tribes and other dynasties such as China and India. However, in the northern part of the steppes lied the foundation of what would become the infamous Mongol Empire. Genghis Khan's leadership played a crucial role in the success of the empire. He was able to unite various tribes under his rule. This would originally be the Temujin coalition, which included a variety of tribes and nomads, until they would form a single Mongol state under the rule of Genghis Khan. The Mongols would expand further into portions of Siberia and China. The foundations of the empire were set. Genghis began to look beyond Mongolia and put his gaze towards the Middle East, most notably on his rival, the Khwarezmian Empire. Genghis had a bitter disdain for the Khwarezmians. This was due to the governor of Otrar, Inalchuk, who accused the members of a Mongol caravan of being spies and had the entire caravan executed, with the exception of one survivor who managed to escape and bring news of the massacre back to Genghis Khan. Genghis tried diplomatic efforts to ease the tensions but were of no avail. War was coming. However, nobody would be prepared for the horrors that were about to unfold. Some of the most brutal chapters in history were about to commence. In 1219, governor of Otrar, Inalchuk, had severely provoked Genghis Khan, who as a result led a vast army to invade the Khwarezmian Empire and lay siege to Otrar. After 5 months, the oasis town was captured. The Mongols executed Inalchuk by having molten silver poured down his neck. Some accounts say it was poured into his ears and eyes. The fighters defending Otrar were all killed, and the entire population of the city was brought out onto the plain by the Mongols. Every one of them, numbering about 100,000, was put to the sword. The invasion of the Khwarezmian Empire was now underway. This would mark the end of the Muslim Golden Age for many of the emirates and sultanates. Genghis Khan was not done there. In February 1221, Genghis Khan's forces laid siege to the city of Merv. When the people of Merv surrendered to the Mongols, the conquerors responded by virtually wiping the city off the map, murdering, pillaging, and wrecking the ancient metropolis. Genghis was reported to have given himself a front-row seat for the mayhem at Merv, sitting on a golden throne, watching as men were dragged before him and executed. The invaders tortured the wealthy citizens of Merv, so they'd give up their money and jewels. Khan apparently ordered each of his soldiers to kill at least 300 people. One source puts the number of dead in the Merv massacre at 700,000, while a contemporary Persian chronicler estimated the number of corpses at a staggering 1.3 million. This would be only the beginning of the nightmares that would unfold. The next target of the Mongols was the city of Nishapur. Mongol commander Tukachar, who was also the husband of Genghis Khan's daughter, died in the siege, being killed by an arrow. The Mongols prevailed in the end. But after being hit with grief, Genghis Khan's daughter requested the death of every resident of the city as vengeance for her husband's death. In order to become sure that no wounded would survive the massacre, Khan's troops killed and beheaded most of the population of the city, and their skulls were reputedly piled in pyramids by the Mongols. Women, infants, children, and even cats and dogs were among the beheaded. Nobody and nothing was out of question to being the target of the Mongols' barbaric methods of bringing death and destruction and leaving very little behind. It was almost like a sport to the soldiers to figure out creative methods on how to use their wrath on others. The Khwarezmian Empire could not recover from these horrors and setbacks. A short time later, the empire would eventually collapse, opening the gates of the Middle East and Europe for the Mongols. The Mongolian territory now spanned almost entirely across the Asian continent, ushering in a new chapter in the Mongol Empire's history. After his conquests in the Middle East, Genghis Khan would die not too long after, which would see his third son, Ögedei Khan, in charge of his father's legacy. Genghis Khan chose Ögedei as his successor, most likely because he had an even temperament, and had often made peace when his two older brothers fought. But much like his father, Ögedei loved war, sending the vast Mongol hordes thousands of miles in nearly every direction to fight and expand the empire. However, he would be most infamous for one of the most heinous crimes known to man. In 1237, the Oirat people failed to contribute the expected cohort of young women to the Mongol emperor's harem. A furious Ögedei decided to punish the Oirat. He ordered 4,000 Oirat girls to be repeatedly raped by his soldiers, and that the girls' families were to be forced to watch. 2 of these girls died in the crime, and the rest were distributed as sex slaves among the harem, merchant caravans, and the Mongol army. It is crimes like these that are lost to history, and we can only imagine what it might have been like to bear witness to the atrocities. The Mongols proceeded to expand in all directions in the years to come. By the year 1258, the empire encompassed all of modern-day Iran, the Caucasus, eastern Ukraine, and more than half of China. However, they would face another great empire in the west, the Abbasid Empire. The Abbasid Empire was at the heart of the great Muslim powers at the time. The Abbasids held one of the most resplendent cities with grand libraries, palaces, mosques, and a center of learning for centuries. This was the city of Baghdad. The Mongols had their next target in their sights. Hulagu Khan, a grandson of Genghis Khan, led an army of 150,000 men to the capital. The Mongol forces, which included Chinese siege engineers, captured the city on February 10, 1258. The victors poured into the city and began a week of carnage, inflicting on the residents a campaign of pillaging, rape, torture, and murder. One account reports that 800,000 were killed during the siege of Baghdad. However, this does not include those who drowned, as there were children who were thrown into pools of mud, and those who died from disease, hunger, and even fear itself. Some sources even go as high as 2 million for the total number of fatalities. With the Abbasid Empire obliterated, the Mongols pushed further into Eastern Europe. By 1279, the empire had reached its peak in territorial expansion under the rule of Kublai Khan. The empire would see its last days in the year 1368 due to a multitude of factors with loss of territory, reconquests from China, and internal conflicts within the ruling Khans. But there is no denying that the Mongol Empire is a true testament in showing one of the most darkest times in human history, a period in history that we never want to return to.